After studying this module, you shall be able to know the need for private participation in infrastructure projects, learn the process of development of various types of infrastructure projects, identify how the infrastructure projects are developed, and analyze differences between various types of infrastructure projects. Introduction. There is a growing consensus among policy formulators that the private-public partnership mode holds the key to the development of infrastructure in the country. In the past, the government used to dominate infrastructure space with hardly any private sector participation. However, times have changed. The government is now focusing on a PPP, public-private partnership model for infrastructure creation. A host of private sector construction players have invested in the infrastructure sector mainly through the BOT model, build, operate, transfer. PPP has been in vogue for over a decade in the country, and there exists copious literature on what constitutes PPP in terms of ownership of assets and responsibility, operation and maintenance. There exists some opaqueness on how O&M responsibility should be transferred from the public domain to the private and what residual responsibilities remain for public institutions to shoulder. Public institutions' financial responsibility also remains clouded, as there is a general perception that the private sector can run the facility profitably right from the beginning. BOO, build, own, operate. With a BOO, which is build, own, operate, a private company is granted the right to develop, finance, design, build, own, operate and maintain a project. Private freight terminal. Under this policy, the entire financing, construction and operation of the freight terminal is undertaken by the private developer. A private terminal has been developed at Garhi, Harsaru near Gurgaon by Gateway District Park within this scheme. MOR is formulating a policy of development of multimodal logistics parks or commodity specific freight terminals on railway land on the build, own, operate BOO basis. Multimodal logistics parks will be like transport villages with all the facilities related to complete logistics operation. To begin with, locations are being identified along the dedicated freight corridor. Railways are building dedicated freight corridor DFC between Delhi and Mumbai. Ministry of Industry has announced Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor along the dedicated freight corridor investment to the tune of US $90 billion, which is expected to be made in setting up of industrial units in the industrial corridor, largely by Japanese investors. Many multimodal logistics parks could be built along with the alignment of DFC in partnership with state governments and the private sector. Extensive integrated hubs in international logistics chain, providing a large number of siding with sheds, huge inland container depots, warehouses for storage, office building for logistics operator, highway connectivity, smaller assembly units working on imported raw materials for export purposes would be significant developments to watch out for in the coming years. Major logistics private player would act as lead promoters with respective state governments providing land and road connectivity, and an SPV with DFC partnership for providing rail siding and rail connectivity. Private container trains. The MOR has announced a policy of permitting private container train operators to move international container traffic. These operators will invest in container flats and construction and operation of private quay side and inland container depots. Even for running a one train per day, it is expected that an investment of 75 crores will be needed to be made by each operator. 15 companies have obtained licenses for entering the container operation fray so far. Long-term commitments on transit time and excess charges on the part of railways would be necessary for achieving success in this area. The scope of this concession can be further increased to permit construction of private freight terminals, multimodal logistic parks, warehouses and container freight stations on BOO basis. Railways are planning to double the traffic under the other category, that is piecemeal, containerized cargo and other bulk commodities, from 100 metric tons in 2007 to 200 metric tons in 2012. Such high growth will be possible if serious business effort is invested into the task by private train container operators in aggregating the piecemeal traffic which is presently moving by road through containerization and bringing it to the railways for transportation. BOT, build, operate, transfer. A type of arrangement in which the private sector builds an infrastructure project, operates it and eventually transfers the ownership of the project to the government. The government tabled a model legislation in January 2004 providing for amendments to the respective state agriculture produce marketing acts, hereinafter referred to as the APMA, to permit private market and other forms of PPP in agricultural markets and related infrastructure. The central government has offered SOPs to the states to incentivize development of marketing infrastructure, especially through private sector involvement. The National Horticulture Mission, launched in April 2005, bears testimony to this stance of the government. The main objectives of providing assistance under this components are to induce investments from private and corporate sectors in the development of marketing infrastructure for horticulture commodities and to strengthen existing horticulture markets, including wholesale and rural haats. The government has incentivized states to include enabling provisions in their respective acts, allowing the private sector to establish their own market yards, since these reforms have to be effected by the state governments. A large number of states have initiated the process of making amendments to their respective APMA to facilitate alternate marketing system, that is private markets, contract farming and so on, as well as private participation in the development, ownership and management of the market infrastructure. The scope for PPP mainly lies in the following areas with regard to markets. 1. Rehabilitation of existing wholesale markets at city and district levels. 2. Service and facility augmentation, O&M of existing wholesale markets. 3. New market investments and operation at city/district level. 4. Creation, development of network of collection centers and or rural haats. And 5th, creation of farmer markets. The scope for PPP in agricultural markets lies in the service contract for outsourcing certain services, management contracts to manage and maintain assets, leasing of markets where modernization and professional management are likely to enhance the efficiencies in the existing markets. Construction of greenfield markets is based on BOO or BOT options, which are most suited for export-oriented agricultural products, where capital-intensive modern markets are required with multimodal freight services. Several states have already taken the initiative to set up terminal markets under the PPP mode with the support from the central government under the National Horticulture Mission. To make sure that the marketing board APMC gets the best facility, a highly competitive bidding system is required to protect the farmer's interest and to price operation and performance indices objectively. Both monitoring and pricing of these indices may require extensive consultations with potential partners. The PPP can take the form of an ordinary EPC, which is engineering, procurement and construction contract, an annuity-based project or an independent SPV. BOOT, build, own, operator, transfer. Boot constructor builds the project. They then get to own and operate it for some period of time, like 20 or 25 years, during which they collect revenues. At the end of the day, the project is handed back over to the government. The Arunachal Pradesh government is planning to build 13 hydroelectric power plants in the state on build, own, operate, transfer BOOT basis. The proposed projects are at Amulin, Emine, Anjoline, Methudon, Itabu, Malinye, Emra 1, Emra 2, Elango in Dibang Valley, and at Sisiri in the lower Dibang Valley, at Hutong 1 in Anjo, Demve in Lohit, and Kalai 2 in Anjo. Arunachal Pradesh has awarded a rupees 900 crore 160 megawatt project to GMR Energy through competitive bidding, which is offering 12% equity to the state in the project, besides the offer of 14% free power and 2 paise per unit as additional benefit to the state. GMR Energy would be implementing the Talong hydropower project scheduled to be commissioned by end 2011 on BOOT basis. The Chhattisgarh model of e-government, making available statewide area network using PPP. As part of the e-government master plan, the government of Chhattisgarh intends to provide services on the internet to its citizens in a secure and controlled manner. These services must be consistently available and have the capacity to grow as requirements increase. This has resulted in the need for a robust communication infrastructure that provides a medium for effective delivery of e-government services to citizens. The statewide area network SWAN will effectively and efficiently meet the requirements of Chhattisgarh for voice, video and data communications for a single centralized communications infrastructure. Various departments in Chhattisgarh have separate applications pertaining to their specific usage and purpose for providing services to citizens. A typical government department using an e-governance application requires the following: 1. A delivery platform for e-governance applications. 2. A mechanism for fast internal communication. 3. Increased access to citizens for services. 4. Transfer of information between employees in different locations, allowing for the sharing of common files. 5. Carriage of voice and data in an integrated manner rather than having separate networks for voice and data. And 6. A secure and reliable channel to transfer data across location. To fulfill these requirements, implementation of a SWAN is imperative. SWAN is expected to cater to the information communication requirements of the entire state government and its departments. Through SWAN, the Chhattisgarh government will ensure that every citizen in the state has access to government services and information whenever and wherever they need it. It will provide reliable vertical and horizontal connectivity within the state administration to make the government more productive. It will also enable government agencies to leverage a robust infrastructure to provide a complete array of government services and information, reduce communication cost, provide a secure backbone for encouraging electronic transactions, enable efficient service management, and strengthen disaster management capacity. The government will make services available in a cost-efficient manner, offering public constituencies equivalent access at an equivalent price regardless of their location in the state, and move towards the provisioning of a converged communication services, voice, data and video up to block level, and the interconnection and interoperation of network platforms, and encouraging vendors to consider any network architecture to determine the most efficient and cost-effective approach. For implementation of SWAN, Chhattisgarh decided to adopt the Build, Own, Operate and Transfer BOOT model, and will be selecting an appropriate agency through a suitable competitive process for the establishment, operation and maintenance of the network. The entire process of outsourcing, including advice on the most appropriate PPP model, is being managed in partnership with a consultancy organization under the direction of an implementation committee to be established by the state. End-to-end service availability on the SWAN and its independent monitoring are prime requirements for reliable, seamless networking across the state and to meet the objectives of this core e-governance infrastructure. Chhattisgarh therefore has proposed to enter into an appropriate service level agreements SLAs with the implementation agencies and appoint an independent agencies to monitor the performance with reference to the SLA and the related aspects. Besides, for the communication network for e-governance to be complete, the state has put the land records management system and the choice CHOICE Chhattisgarh online information for citizen empowerment application online. Case study: IDFC model for wholesale agricultural market. IDFC has advised several states on the development of the wholesale agricultural market and related infrastructure. Salient features of the model are as follows. For a greenfield endeavor by the private sector, the project components comprising a typical wholesale market may include market yard with cold storage facility, backward linkages, that is collection centers supplying, assembling for the market yard, third, forward linkages such as cash and carry stores in terminal markets and city, retail stores, wholesalers, fruit vegetable processing unit, processing and packaging facilities, other related infrastructure for retailing goods to the farmers, transparent price discovery systems such as electronic auctions, commodity exchange. The return expectation of the private investor from the project would be a function of the following parameters. Capital investment, which mainly depend upon 1. Size of the terminal market. This is based on projected arrivals and estimated consumption of fruit and vegetables. This can be expected to grow at a rate that correlates with the rate of growth of population and estimated market share that this terminal market can capture vis-a-vis the supply. Modal prices of various fruit and vegetables prevailing in the market and arrivals of major fruit and vegetables item are used to reach a single weighted average price for key commodities. Second, the technology section, that is the degree of mechanization and modernization and therefore the attendant costs. And 3, means of financing, which may include debt, equity and in some cases grants available through government schemes, particularly the National Horticulture Mission. The collection centers may be financed by member, stakeholder equity and borrowings or equity from the market owning entity in case of private markets. Collection centers will arrange for loans through banks, government financial institutions and cooperatives. Forward linkage players may be privately financed by entrepreneurs, namely through the franchisee route. Revenue streams primarily comprise of 1. Market fees payable on turnover, 2. Entry fees and parking fees, 3. Service charges as applicable for any value addition, 4th, rentals from the real estate, wholesale and retail component, 5. Rentals from any other infrastructure owned, 6. Royalty from franchisee, 7th, any other value added services. The main expenses comprise 1. Administrative expense, 2. Operational expenses for the sorting, grading, cooling facilities, value addition provided by the market, which are mainly power, crate charges and transportation charges. Unlike traditional wholesale market yards where the costs are to the tune of 10% of the market earnings, operational costs in modern markets may be to the tune of 30 to 40% of the market earnings. Summary: only government owned and operated infrastructural projects have shown poor results in the past, because of which there is a greater need of private sector to enter into the infrastructure market. The government is focusing on the public-private partnership PPP model for infrastructure creation. PPP projects can be BOO, BOOT or BOLT. As seen in the various projects running in PPP are showing better results, there should be more such projects for the improvement of the infrastructure of the country.